right. Right, I'll start again. I got two poems. One is fairly short, so ipso facto, the other one is pretty long. And for that, I'm going to share screen for the second poem. The first one, I think there's a thread running between this one and the following poem, which I didn't realize when I wrote this first one. And I was thinking back to younger days when I was a teenager. I used to wander up about 3 miles out of Ulverston when parents lived up onto top of Birkrigg Common. It was just like grass, bracken and sheep up there. And I could look over Morecambe Bay one direction, over to the Pennines in another direction. At the back of me, you could see the peaks of the Lake District, and over the other direction there would be Ireland or the Irish Sea. And this is sort of impressions of when I used to stand there and just look up at the sky. I think almost in some kind of trance, wondering what it was all about. And I think was where my interest in this sort of aspect of existence started. So it's called Clouds. When I was younger, I looked at clouds suspended beneath a dome of sky, encircling the edge of the horizon, throwing a diadem around the earth. Alone and windswept atop a rocky outcrop on Birkrigg Common, overlooking Morecambe Bay, I stood and gazed for what seemed like hours, lost in wonder and how small I seemed to be beneath that sky, a mere pixel on the landscape. I stared for an age, imagining what lay behind that hazy rim, measuring the curve of the world that seemed beyond my reach, leaving an aching sense of curiosity that smoldered like a dull hunger. If eternity cannot be quantified, counted off in grains of sand, I vaguely grasped a sense of it, looking up into that void with a longing that filled me up each time I wandered among tall hills to stand and look at clouds. Thanks, that's the first one. And before I share screen, I'll just give a little bit of a background to this one. It's a long time. I've been working on it for over a year, on and off. And it started, I bought a CD of the Kronos Quartet, and CD was entitled Sun Rings, and it was a composition by Terry Riley. And it started out, I think, David Harrington met this guy, Don Gurnett, who's a NASA space physicist. And he found out he had this load of tapes and recordings of things that he'd done. He designed some of the instruments on the Voyager projects to measure things like sort of the kind of solar winds and stuff like that. And then he found ways to be able to record these various different features, and then the clever bit was then to transfer it into sort of frequencies that the human ear could hear. And then David Harrington introduced Terry Riley to him. So Terry Riley listened to these tapes and came up with this composition. And of course, they've worked along with Kronos Quartet, and it incorporates some of the actual recordings. And I found that when I was making notes, I ended up with about half a notebook full of notes based on listening to the CD, making notes on impressions, making notes on the sleeve notes, the comments by people involved, and also some of the strange titles of some of the tracks. So things like Bebop Turismo, Planet Elf Sinduri, Earth Whistlers, the Electron Cyclotron Frequency Parlor. And I just had to do something. So I spent about 6 months, kept on looking back at these notes, thinking, yeah, I better start writing something. But it was just sort of quite intimidating. I didn't know where to start. So as is my want, sitting in a Cafe Nero's one day, I decided to sort it out. So I made up 4 sections. I thought, okay, this is a way, sort of like an opening, second, third, and fourth section. And then it made it manageable. I could then put the ideas into some kind of order. And then I started writing. And I've got to the point now where I think I've done several rewrites. And it was funny because I did one when I was preparing for tonight's. I had a document, it was titled Final Revision. And then about 2 days later, I had another document titled Second Final Revision. So there may actually be a third final revision before long. So we'll see how it goes. So without further ado, I'll get into it. It's called, the actual album is called Sun Rings, and my piece is called Sun Rings Sutra. Let me just find. Right, okay. No. Oops, can't see anything.
There we go. We see a leader in the 20.
No, no, that's not it. Your screen sharing. So, yeah, stop share.
You're just not sharing the right screen, or you were not sharing the right screen. Typically, the first default choice is the one that shows your main screen.
Okay, let's go. Ah, can you see that?
Yes, indeed.
Just the title page.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Brilliant. Okay, okay, fine. So let's get started. Sun Rings Sutra. Dancing to the music of the
We're not seeing it, Ian. We're just seeing the you have to open up the file.
Where do I do that?
Just double click on the Sun Ring Sutra.
Yeah, it's a list of titles right now.
Okay, and we go back. Do I just stop sharing and go back to it?
Yeah, that's
You can just click on it right now.
Yeah, no, it's best to stop share and come in and put it on your desktop and then come back to it. It's easier.
Okay. How about that?
Sure. If you open it up,
has it open yet?
Okay. Try that.
Just the document you're reading from.
There we go.
Very good. Very good.
Is that it? Can you see that now? Oh, brilliant. Okay. Okay. Sun Rings Sutra. Dancing to the music of the spheres. First part, overture. Sparks fly, the universe hums. Gazing upwards at the interstices between sky and space, the void shimmers with echoes of ghostly voices. Frozen flakes of charged ions brush the stratosphere, where layers of indigo and ultraviolet vibrate, ululating in cat's paws of space and time, spiraling outwards. The pulsating heartbeat of 1,000 generations skips to the seismic shocks of quantum shifts, invisible to the naked eye. Every atom in my body thrums to the dulcet bass undertones of the universe. Each nerve ending quivers and tingles to strange harmonics like the chimes of a gamelan orchestra. This alien music shakes the air, colliding quantum motes, scattering in entangled assonant array, lighting up the northern skies. Magnetic force fields strum my senses like flamenco strings, while bebop rhythms scramble the surface layers of consciousness. Voices rise and fall, appearing through swirls of plangent sounds, like holy white rollers on shingle beaches. Like a stone thrown into the unfathomable eons of deep space, ripples of synesthesia cross that tenebrous terrain of the unknown, watching, listening out for ephemeral notes gathering on convoluted antennae like murmuring starlings as infinite rings of synergy germinate the void of inner firmaments, exploding nebula bouncing off fugitive realms of dark matter that we sense but cannot see or touch. And all this while sparks fly as the universe hums. The second part, proposition 1, space is not a vacuum. Electrons trapped in gravitational waves, X-ray frequencies evade our senses, while solar winds flow over us like ocean swells, traversing the fathomless depths between continents, held hostage to hidden forces that even now we barely comprehend, to wash over footsore tired bodies longing for rejuvenation. And if you listen carefully, you may just detect the raw-grained spectrum of what once had seemed to be the blank emptiness of space. Now it reverberates, echoing to the eerily graceful glissandi of mysterious earth whistlers. Swirling ethereal voices, strange fiery creatures humming with a Geiger counter buzzsaw of dolphin clicks, Morse code on speed, all white noise washing over me, all this as tangible as the crashing spray of molten surf. I lean into the invisible blasts of turbulence as naturally as I once leaned into cushioning pillows of onshore winds blasting local beaches on Walney Island, unseen but capable of knocking a man over sideways and under as if punched by a giant's fist. This is the plasma peyote universe, a booming surge of bow wave, parting atmospheres in amplitudes of centrifugal forces, snapping open somnambulant synapses. What strange mysteries lurk in this deep unknown, showers of particles disguised as cold phantoms searching for a haunted body to let them in, the abyss filling up with a polyphony of incantations drifting across the vastness of interstellar wastes. Now no longer an empty, lifeless vacuum as we once envisaged, but a vibrant world filled with its own dawn chorus of birdsong. But like a tree falling in a frozen forest in space, can anybody hear you scream? The slithering, sylph-like yawing creep of dark energies begin to seep into our mind's eye. The blurry outlines caught in the frayed net of our peripheral vision pull into focus, revealing other worlds. Multi-dimensional universes prick the blank canvas of our senses. That Jupiter-Earth kiss sends trembling ecstasies slipping through gyrational motions. Lazy waveforms pulsate in swellings that break on further shores, further than the mind can reach to swim in salty oceans. And all the while, Dantean circles forged in the nuclear midriff of solar-powered jet streams send rumbling radio waves through the medium of intergalactic dust, streaming through megalithic clouds, passing on their way in rippling fields of electromagnetic pulses, like sharpened summer breezes, surfing fields of green wheat, bending and compressing infinite seas of space-time in spiral arms of exploding galaxies. Meanwhile, we land-lubbered seafarers tie ourselves to the mainmast of our ingrained daily existence, our ears blocked to the siren voices ringing out from planet Elf Sinduri. But if you lay your delicate ear to a digital conch shell wired up for sound and vision, you might just detect the passing, plunging sweep of space and time that gathers up our dreams, resplendent in all their transcendental lucidity, gathered up in gently rocking arms. Resistance is futile. Relax and float out on an infinite stream of subliminary notes that wrap you like an enchanted aura, sending out tingling sensations through the coiling plasma of the cosmos. Part 3. Proposition 2. We are plugged into the music of the spheres. Alarums, the dawning of awakenings, weeping through heavy velvet drapes, resonating thunderclaps, the thrumming reverberations of shuddering, dark timbered doorways into nether worlds. This brittle veil of ether is punctuated, dancing on sharp barbs of electrical impulses, shimmering purple of flashing arcs of welding, metal fusing with metal. In rocking motion, seesawing notes undulate in crazed sine wave patterns. The bowed strings of an interplanetary orchestra vibrate in crashing plangent chords, articulating particular patterns, once familiar to ancient ears, fine-tuned to stranger voices carried on shimmering seas of nebulaic starfields, the time signature of the universe as it modulates through alien key changes. Post-coital synth waves whisper in babbling echoes, emanating from wormholes and the endless pirouette of space-time, spinning entranced like dervishes wrapped in the humming electron cyclotron frequency parlor of infinite space. These rippling swirls of celestial strings swoop and dance like softly waving tendrils of multicolored sea anemones, synchronized to the ocean's deep-rooted rhythms, conducted by invisible currents. Gravity's rainbow pulls and caresses each flowing step, choreographed by the choral voices of fierce solar winds, like white horses' manes, whipped by howling westerlies, crashing onto the strand of straining perceptions, their phosphorescent trails of spume glistening, with haunting wails enveloping each sylph-like soul. Swelling plasma waveforms sing joyous hymns of cosmic recreation, plucking ragas in measureless arrays of talas, with a rapid finger tap, tap, tapping, beating on the sensitive skein of inner eardrum, improvising from eons of practice timing, all jazz offbeats and wild pulsations, ta-da-dum, ta-da-dum, ta-da-ta-da-ta-da-dee-um. And riding in the barrel of gravity's curvature of space, time and the music of the spheres bend and reverberate like seasoned surfers, boarding the crest with their limitless variations, their listless timbres, beating out the irrevocable progress of timelessness with such precision to outmatch the finest master musician. Imbued with such refined oscillations, this sweeping hand ticks on metronomically with the constancy, the implacable resolution of a decaying neutron star. This is how the music goes. This is how the world goes round. The sweeping hand of time keeps on around and round and round. Final parts. Consequences. Prayer central. Truth sparks incandescent showers flowing from the holy breath. See how wondrous it flares, how radiantly lighting up the skies. And in serene accompaniment, low soughing prayers quiver in silvery shards of moonlight, giving off quixotic shivers as angels hover on ethereal airs. Tectonic resonances of stellar rumblings, so low I am barely conscious as they flow over me. The stars sing to us in subliminal frequencies. Such is the enigmatic nature of this choir of background radiation. We are aware, yet unaware, Like embryonic fetuses, our prenatal perceptions remain untapped, but still they infiltrate our inner core with unfamiliar solemnities, our inner ear catching hold of faintly sonorous revelations in the tumbling tremors of subparticle undertows. On such singular occasions, our recalcitrant hearts open up to receive the blessings of unconditional love in the oneness of a primordial, egoless, pre-conscious existence, to be merged and subsumed willingly into the eternal womb, echoing to bebop rhythms, Jazz City lit up as bright as any far-off quasar, edging the furthermost reaches of the universe. It's prayer central all over again, raining oblations and blessings over all. There is no hidden mystery, no obscurantist mysticism to blind your befuddled senses. Information is all around you, just not necessarily in a form you might be familiar with. All you need is acceptance. Lean back into that inner child, tap into the infinite, the sublime truth. Listen. The soundless voices of interplanetary travelers call out to us, radiating in eternal rings of sunbeams to illuminate the darkness in our hearts, in our minds, wrapped up within the inner folds of receptive souls to join in this refrain. One earth, one people, one love. Let the spirit take you in its uplifting arms, transcending hidden shackles of grievance and recrimination. Om Shanti, Om Shanti. Thank you very much. It's me.